Welcome. This is our fourth Youth Research Dialogue in 2024. In case you're not familiar with our RAY Youth Research Dialogues, we are implementing them since 2021, and we are aiming to discuss evidence-based youth research findings from RAY and beyond. My name is Carmen Tobel-Kiviniemi. I'm the project manager and coordinator of the European Youth Research Network RAY, which is hosted by the Finnish National Agency for Education. Our network involves 36 partners in Europe, national agencies responsible for the European youth programs, and national research partners. Today, we talk about digital youth work from policy to practice. We will talk about digital youth work in the context of the European youth programs, but also beyond, and both policy and practical dimensions will be explored. RAY itself will bring fresh findings from our RAY research project on the role of digitalisation in youth work and non-formal learning. And we are also proud that the research report is now officially published on our website, so please check it out. Friedemann Schwenzer from our RAY transnational research team will be here with us today. He is part of Youth Policy Labs, where the research team is based in Berlin. Digital youth work has been the core of his work for many, many years. He is responsible for the RAY DIGI project and is also an author on a curriculum on digital youth work. Our guest speaker brings valuable insights from her PhD research on digital transformation in youth work, including a human rights approach. We are very happy to have Alessandra Coppola with us here today. She is a youth sector professional. She has been a youth worker and a project manager for many years, but she is also an activist for human rights, particularly in digital spaces and against hate speech. She is also a policy expert and currently doing her PhD, and she will share first insights from her research with us. Today's episode is a special one. We have some additional guests from the practice side with us, experts on digital youth work. So we invited two organizations involved in our RAY DIGI project, and they will introduce their work. They will reflect on digital youth work practices, different approaches, benefits, and so on. And we are welcome Claire Duffy. She is an artistic director of Civic Digit, a data-driven creative learning theatre company, which focuses on young people in their families and communities. And our other special guest is Eva Kristchova. She is the founder of Use It, the Prague Group, which is part of the Use It network in Europe. And its most renowned activity is publishing iconic square city maps for young travelers in a contemporary way with digital media. Thank you so much to both of you for being with us today. Without much further ado, let's start. Our team today is Tomi Kilakoski, our moderator, and Tomoga Moric, our digital facilitator. And see you later.
Hello, my name is Tomi Kilakoski, and I will be your moderator today. The fast development of the digital world with new technologies is affecting all of us. Given this, it's not surprising that there are a lot of expectations, hopes, and also fears about digital youth work. Before we dive into our discussion, I would like to remind the audience about the great possibility to join the dialogue. We invite you to ask questions either on Facebook or on YouTube chats or via Slido. Simply go to slido.com and type in the code, which is displayed now on the screen. And we will dive straight into the dialogue with our practitioners colleagues from organizations involved in the RAY DIGI research. And the report of RAY DIGI research is available on internet at the moment. Afterwards, we continue with our usual flow and discuss today's topics with our two speakers. So welcome, Claire and Eve. It's a pleasure to have you here. So I have a first question of you. What type of digital youth work do you do in your organization? And let's start with Claire and then Eva.
Okay, hello. What Civic Digits does is we make digital tools, new digital technology in order to tell stories about what it means to be a digital citizen. That's the kind of core thing that we do. As an example of this year we've made a project called Many Good Men, which is about the radicalization of masculinity online. And what we did in the making of that is we created a live performance which was performed in a football ground at Hearts Football Ground in Edinburgh, and we turned one of the locker rooms into what we tried to kind of think of as a digitally immersive space. So every participant had a mobile phone, and they used that phone to choose what was being seen in the space. So to choose between different bits of content, and also we've developed an app called Swish, which allows remote audiences as well as live in-person audiences to contribute with questions and text to the performance as well. So that means that the audience are digitally immersed in a live collective experience, as opposed to what often happens with social media is you're immersed in that digital world, but you're on your own in your own room or out and about in public, but you're not engaged in a community event. So we're trying to use digital technology as a way of kind of exploring that kind of possibility of using these kinds of tools in order to build community rather than isolate and polarize community.
Thank you, Claire. What about you and your organization, Eva?
Hi. For us, the digital transformation meant that we tried to go from paper maps, where we introduce city info through the eyes of young people living in the cities, to young travelers. For many years, since 70s, actually we did it through paper maps, and then we decided to switch to digital product in 2014, I would say. And until then, the digital youth work on the local level worked the way that people mostly communicated with each other through communication tools. They did the project management through digital tools. They did some graphic design through digital tools and communicated with the public through social media. But when we tried to work on the European level, when the cities and the separate teams started to communicate with each other and to build a truth network, we started to need this product, the digital map, that would work for everyone. And actually that one failed during COVID. And so we also went through a big transformation during that time, and we needed like some more input. So we started to do Erasmus Plus projects, and we needed more structured and more elaborated digital communication and digital tools. And also we needed to educate ourselves not to do the same mistake with the digital product. So our whole project, and you can now show the slide, so our project, you can also learn more at this website. And if you show the third slide now, because we will skip the second one, there's too much text. Our project tried to educate the people who were supposed to make paper maps originally, to educate them to do more technical things. So not to lose again the work that we have done, to do hackathons, to do seminars, and yeah, that would benefit us as a network, and it will benefit young travelers, and it will benefit the youth that want to start to share the local info.
Thanks to both of you. These are fascinating examples of how how diverse digital youth work is. Now, the second question to both of you, what are the benefits of doing digital youth work, especially connected with youth work in general? So, does digital youth work affect new and more diverse people, more diverse people to youth work? So let's start with Claire once again.
Well, I don't know whether I don't have any data about it being more diverse, but Civic Digits aims to work in an intersectional way. We're coming from an intersectional feminist perspective. I think I think all of us, but particularly perhaps young people, because they've been born into a digital world, need to think critically about what the digital world is and what it brings to us and what it means to be, you know, a digital citizen, what it means, how being online all the time affects our sense of humanity and what it means to be a human being, but also a member of a community, member of a family, in a partnership. Also, you know, every aspect of our lives is mediated in some way through digital and data-driven technology. So I think it's important that we engage with that digital technology, and in order to think critically about it. So it's about form and content working together. And also, I suppose, young people don't distinguish between being online and being in person. It's all life. It's you know, your life is online and in person and on all other things. So it makes absolute sense to me and to our organisation that you are marrying these worlds together in order to engage with young people. I suppose as a theatre maker, as a playwright, which is what I started off as, unfortunately, the demographic of people going to the theatre in the UK is something like, well, the vast majority, over 75% of the audiences in theatres are over the age of 65. So on that basis alone, it's more diverse, and it's a way of reaching out and using the skills of performance to reach young people, to talk about the things that are the most crucial issues of our times. I think the most interesting stories of our times are either about the internet, about how we communicate online, or it's about how the online revolution has profoundly changed different aspects of our lives. So either way, whether it's about the internet or being affected by the internet, it's crucial, I think, that if you want to reach a diverse audience, that you engaged with digital technology. Also, the other thing I would add to that is that there are so many barriers for all sorts of different reasons for true diversity, to, you know, true access diversity, and digital access gives people who, for example, have caring responsibilities, they can still access events and participate in projects online, but there's also, you know, costs and travel and climate change issues. Like, there are so many different reasons why it is difficult to take part in person, and being able to have hybrid projects gives much greater access to more diverse audiences and groups of participants.
Thank you, Claire. What about you, Eva?
I can just confirm what Claire said. Like, for young people now, it would be a very niche product. Like the thing that what we do, the paper maps, is you rarely see young people in a city with paper maps, but you see them all the time with the phone. So obviously, our benefit to reach young people is to offer the information that we have done for decades through digital tools. But also, during the last decade, the number of city teams, the young people that want to form teams in cities and make this project happen, decreased. And we think it's also because of that, because we are losing the audience. It means we are also losing the people who want to produce this information. So we really hope that with the new transformation, the benefit would be also to have more city maps and more information about cities through the whole Europe, which we already have now. Like we are covering almost all countries and so on, but the more the better.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Eva. We wanted to give an audience a glimpse of what's going on in different corners of youth work and how digital tools are connected to that. And they respect your commitment and your wisdom and your reflexivity. So thank you for informing us. And now we will turn to the dialogue with the researchers. And firstly, we will hear from our guest speaker, Alessandra Coppola, and she will give a short input on her research on digital youth work. So Alessandra, it's yours.
Hello, Tommy. Thank you for the stage. And yes, I want to share with you today some conclusions for one part of my PhD research, so the one related with the digital youth work at European policy level. So the methodology I used is composed by desk research about European policy documents related with digital youth work, but also smart youth work and digital transformation as topics. Then I added interviews to key testimonies at European level, and then I made a comparative analysis of all these materials. So we can identify 3 strategic goals from all these documents that are very visible at European level. So the first one is to integrate digital tools and competencies into youth work practice. The second one is to the aim of preparing youth workers for the digital age. And the third is to enhance digital skills and tools for inclusivity and quality in youth work. It's very related with what we already heard from our previous speakers. So I went through a lot of policy documents, and for the sake of this dialogue today, I only selected the ones that are strictly related to digital youth work. So the ones from the European Union that you can see in this slide, and the one related to the Council of Europe. I want to give a special mention to the common policy documents that are the European Youth Work Agenda and the Bonn Declaration, because these 2 policy documents include a special reference to the digital transformation concept in youth work, promoting the development of youth work that adopts face-to-face and digital formats to meet the changing needs of young people. And this is important because without transformation, we don't have digital youth work. We have online youth work, for example. This is something that we can discuss about later. So from the comparative analysis, we can easily see that the main focus of Council of Europe is towards human rights and digital ethics, with the strategy of addressing online safety, misinformation, and radicalization. And on the other side, the European Union focus complement this approach with a main aim of developing digital skills for employability and participation, and also with the expected outcome of economic and social benefit through digital inclusion. So we can also have a look to the other comparative aspects that I took into consideration, just for the sake of the discussion. On inclusion and participation, the approach of the European Union is more looking at digital tools as a way to boost participation, especially in the decision-making process, while the approach of the Council of Europe is more to use to produce inclusive policies for reducing the digital divide and support, protect, and enhance the participation of marginalized youth. We have other aspects that are interesting in the comparative analysis. For example, what is related to ethics and concerns. We already said that the focus of the EU is more on digital skill development, but it doesn't mean that there's no concern towards the ethical issue. But this is a strong frame in Council of Europe work, in Council of Europe policy frame, especially about privacy, cyber security, and combating hate speech online. There's all a new policy frame coming out about artificial intelligence, for example, but this is something for another dialogue maybe. In terms of challenges, the European Union look more to the digital divide, so to the unequal access to technology and to the digital skills to be developed for young people and youth workers. And the Council of Europe look more to the challenge of the ethical implication, as said, so the data privacy, the digital rights, the online safety. The opportunities are very similar for both institutions. So the opportunities for of digital youth work for young people can be framed into enhanced employability through digital skills, but also increased youth participation through digital platform. In conclusion, what I can say from this very short overview of the comparative policy analysis is that digital transformation in youth work is considered crucial for improving education and civic participation. So the key word is transformation for me today. And the second conclusion is that both Council of Europe and the European Union provide frameworks that when they are integrated, they can balance the development of skills with the protection of digital rights of young people. And in conclusion, the future of youth work and digital youth work, which is not something else than youth work, requires additional policy development, especially, for example, in the field of artificial intelligence, and of course support, funding and training to navigate the digital challenge by the youth workers. So thank you for listening to me, and if you want to see the full report or the full research analysis, I can send it to you by contacting me. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra. And the next presentation is Friedemann Schwenzer. Friedemann, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tony. I'm happy to be here and happy to present RAY DIGI to you today, a best practice study on digital youth work. And because we're a little short on time, let's dive into it right away with a little bit of context. Carmen already mentioned it in the introduction. RAY DIGI has a really long title. It's called Research Project on the Role of Digitalization in Youth Work and Non-Formal Learning in the Context of the European Youth Programs. And it's a RAY research project that started out in 2021, and it had back in the day and still has the mission statement that RAY DIGI explores the dimension of digitalization, documents the progress of digitalization in the European youth programs, and develops recommendations to strengthen and support digital dimensions in youth work. And the RAY DIGI project had different research modules, but today we only going to focus on the main module, so to say, on our best practice study on digital youth work. And usually the first question is, what is digital youth work in the first place? And for our research, we used a definition that was proposed by a European expert group. They said that digital youth work means proactively using or addressing digital media and technology in youth work. It's not a youth work method, but can be included in any youth work settings. It has the same goals and values as youth work in general, and it can happen in face-to-face situations as well as in online environments. You see a pretty broad definition, And we managed to identify more than 60 projects that actually match this definition across Europe, and conducted case studies. We, that is our national research partners, national agencies, and their researchers, and they conducted a focus group with project teams and with young participants. So we have both the perspective of youth workers and young people involved in our studies. Most of the project studies were funded by the European Youth Programs, but we also had a look beyond, and we are happy that all of these conversations we were able to analyze and write a report that is online on the RAY website. And on the next slide, you get a bit of an overview what we were actually exploring in the focus groups. So with young people and youth workers, we were looking into motives and inspirations, why they actually got involved in digital youth work. We were talking about experiences, settings, features, and pedagogical attitudes, but also into success factors of digital youth work. And we were talking about young people's digital needs and realities and how they are translated into youth work. And last but not least, we were talking about futures and visions of digital youth work. And on the next slide, I prepared some reasons for you why you should read the report. I already said it's online available, but you can also keep watching the research dialogue, because we will dive into some of the findings. So long story short, you should read the report if you're interested in why youth workers and young people engage with digital youth work. And you should read it if you're interested about the secret of successful digital youth work. You should also consider reading it if you want to understand more about young people's digital competences, realities, and needs in youth work. And last but not least, something that we actually never did before, we based on our research, we created reflection tools for youth work practitioners to reflect their digital youth work and to plan digital youth work in the future. That's it from my side. Go to the website, download it, and keep watching. Thanks.
Thank you, Friedemann. Before we move on to the dialogical part, I would like to inform you that we had some audience questions for Claire and Eva, and we cannot answer them during our dialogue, but Eva and Claire are preparing the answers, and will share the answers to you on Facebook and on YouTube using written format. So these are really insightful stuff. Hope you read them. And I would like to remind you once again that you can ask questions using Facebook, YouTube, or Slido. But without further ado, let's move on to the dialogical part. Alessandra and Friedemann, we heard examples from Eva and Claire about the ways they are doing digital youth work in their organization. Now, based on your research, are these examples typical narratives about digital youth work? And Alessandra, maybe you can start.
Yes, I can say that these two examples are exactly aligned with the two positions or the two main focus of the two institutions that I've been studying through. So, for example, the project of Claire is more in line with the focus and strategy of the Council of Europe, taking care of the human rights of the users. So in order also to prevent discrimination and to prevent vulnerability of the young people while doing digital youth work. And on the other side, the project of Eve, it's very much in line with the idea of skill development and employability that is fostered by the documents and the policies of the European Union. So what I mean is that the combination of both this approach is a perfect example of how digital transformation should happen in order to have real digital youth work.
What about you, Friedemann?
I would say yes and no. Yes, because they are great examples of how non-formal youth work and digital education can actually build meaningful synergies. Like when looking at civic digis, they do theater, so they make a lot of effort to make digital technologies and topics tangible. And one thing what we do in youth work often is like experiential learning. And I think that's quite a good example of what we could call experiential learning. And when looking at the USIP maps, youth work is often described as a purpose-driven and critical practice, and engaging people, young people in creating maps and learning digital skills while making their world accessible for others, I think is quite a purposeful practice. And a lot of other projects we interviewed stressed that they want to have a purpose-driven usage of digital technology. So I think that's a good example how youth work and digital education can build good synergies. No, I think because I think they are quite advanced examples, right? In the way they use digital technologies and the way they are embedded in complex discourses, I think it's quite an advanced example. And I think not all digital youth work happening out there is as advanced and has to be that advanced, but nonetheless, I think great examples of digital youth work.
I have a continuing question for you, Friedemann. Digital youth work can happen online or offline. In your report, you mentioned that blended approaches are especially valued by both young people and youth workers. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
True. I mean, it might have been something to do with the pandemic, because like during the pandemic, a lot of youth work went online, and there's this digital fatigue setting in. But like if zooming out on a more abstract level, so digital technology adds a new youth workspace and a new possibility for youth workers to use. And both young people and youth workers agree that we should make use of these two different youth work spaces and to leverage the advantages. And in the end, it's about making deliberate choices of where youth work should happen and why. So, for example, there are projects like long-term projects that start off with an on-site meeting, and then once a while they check in to keep group processes alive, or other projects that use online events for young people with social anxieties, because for them it's too much to actually be together in a room. And so they start off online and then move to on-site settings. So I think in the end, it's about making deliberate choices where youth work happens, and it needs to serve a purpose. And making use of both these opportunities and taking a blended approach is often valued by both young people and youth workers.
So I have a different question for Alessandra. There was an audience question to Claire about negative aspects of digitalization and the possibilities of excluding some young people if we use digital devices. So in your research, how does one deal with negative aspects of digitalization in digital youth work?
Yeah. this is like a dilemma that that I could encounter either in the policy documents, but also in the perception of youth workers and decision makers. I have to say that if from one side there is a risk in doing digital youth work in a setting that is different from the traditional one, but only because the youth workers were used to deal with this setting. So the key point is to try to understand how to deal with a new different setting that can be not only the online one, but also when we speak, for example, about the blended approach, it's not only online and offline. Blended is also in person and at distance, or it's also a synchronous or asynchronous approach. So in all this situation, what matters is how the young people and the youth workers are prepared to live, move, and learn in that setting. So it's very much important, of course, the set of digital competencies they have. But it's also important to understand that it's a matter of being familiar with the digital space in order not to be digital phobic. No? So how to minimize the risk of living of vulnerability in this space is to know this space, how it functions, but not only in terms of skills, also in terms of governance, how this space functions, who is making the rules for this space, and how the young people and youth worker can influence it under the point of view of making this more friendly for learning scope, for example.
Thank you, Alessandra. Friedemann, do you want to elaborate on that, about the negative aspects of digitalization in context of digital youth work?
I think it's important to first of all acknowledge that there are negative aspects and that and to be aware of them. Like I was bringing up the example of experiential learning, for example. So everyone, I think, agrees that being online in a seminar in front of the screen cuts a lot of dimensions youth work usually has. And to be aware of that as a competence a youth worker needs. And when looking at our research, there are examples of youth workers who are aware of that and try to tackle it. Like I remember one youth work project where they delivered online workshops on sustainability, and they were sending items out, like things to touch, to smell, for young people during these online workshops. So they deliberately wanted to tackle the limitation online spaces have, and wanted to translate non-formal education into an online environment. So this was a great and creative example of how to actually tackle the limitations online spaces sometimes have for youth work.
There's an audience question, which is probably intended to both of you. It goes like this: have you in your research seen any evidence of digital youth work being able to reach groups of youth that are normally not met in schools, extracurricular activities, youth centers, etc.?
That's a quite specific question. Like stories we hear a lot is that youth organizations were able to reach different kinds of groups, and we interviewed young people that said they wouldn't have engaged in youth work without the digital aspect. So we have evidence that youth work actually attracts new young people to youth work. But this specific question, I don't have evidence, but I could imagine this happening.
From my side, I did a research time ago on youth work in rural and peripheral areas, for example, especially after the pandemic, for the resocialization of young people at risk of exclusion and marginalization. And I can say that not only during the pandemic, but also after it, the use of digital tools or methods help the people living in remote areas to be more included and to take part in activities, in processes that otherwise would have been not accessible for them. So in this sense, the digital space, it's a possibility for this target group to be not excluded. So it's a positive impact of the use of digital youth work.
Yes, thank you. There's an audience questions to you, Alessandra, and that audience questions helps us to move from practice to more policy-oriented perspectives. It goes like this. Did you look at connections across policies between European Union and Council of Europe? For example, digital competencies as a prerequisite for digital rights?
I understand the point. And in terms of evidence, you mean there are connections, as I said, from the Council of Europe and European Union side at policy level on what is recommended in order to have a quality digital youth work. So in terms of quality development, it is required the development of digital competencies, not only from the youth workers, but also by the young people in order to prevent the negative aspects of digital youth work. So the protection of digital rights online, but also offline, while using digital devices, for example, it's naturally connected as a sort of prerequisite to the digital competencies. So developing digital skills helps to reduce incidents in the exercise of digital youth work practice.
The next question goes to both of you. In the report, it is mentioned that, and I'm quoting now, there is now a need for strategic planning of digital youth work in the post-pandemic era. So that is something Friedemann and his colleague wrote. So in your opinion, what types of elements are most important in the new strategy? Let's start with Friedemann, because you are the one who wrote this.
Yeah, I mean, we were like in the interviews, there were a lot of reflection on what happened during the pandemic, right? And what happened is youth work had to react to situational needs. And because of pandemic restrictions, they had to move online in order to ensure young people's access to youth work offers, basically. And what we figured is after the pandemic, now it's not the matter anymore about ensuring access to youth work, but youth work should become an actor in providing young people with access to digital technologies and skills. And usually the pandemic approach was quite like situational and not planned. And so now for youth work organization is a good moment probably to start thinking like about alignment of European and national strategies, but also start building an organizational strategy, for example, something that only few youth work organizations have on digitalization, and start building targeted offers for young people to foster digital skills in the post-pandemic time. Because during the pandemic, what young people learned is being online in a video conferencing environment. So they learned a lot about online communication and online collaboration, but topics like digital content creation or data and information literacies were somewhat sidelined. At least that's something we see in our research data. So start making organizational strategies and start tackling topics like information and data literacy and digital content creation, but also digital well-being, for example.
So the last word goes to Alessandra. So do you agree with Friedemann's idea that it's time for new strategy? And if you do, what are the main elements?
I totally agree with Friedemann, and I also add that again I stress this out that it's important that transformation in youth work. It's not enough to add digital devices, digital contents, or digital activities to the youth work practice in order to have a quality digital youth work. So it's very much important to see this transformation in the practice approach from the youth worker side, and to understand that it doesn't exist in the mind of the young people, this distinction that we could do about the digital and non-digital world. So their experience is different, and so we have to integrate this experience into the way in which the youth work is practiced, and also according to that, the way in which the youth work is strategically planned. So I would foresee that we still speak about digital youth work for a while, because it's important to highlight this need of transformation. But I also hope that at one point we reach the moment in which it is integrated in the way in which the youth work practice is done, and there's no need anymore to ask for this integration, for this transformation, because it's naturally part of the way in which youth work functions. Is this clear?
It is to me, at least. Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, Friedemann. And a big thank you also to everyone in the audience for joining our 4th Youth Research Dialogue in 2024.
Yes, and in case you would like to rewatch it, or you or your colleagues missed it, we have great news. The stream will be available afterwards, so please, watch us again and recommend us.
Yeah, and I say thank you, Tommy and Tomogoy, to both of you for running the show, and to all of our speakers, Claire, Eva, Friedemann, Alessandra. It was a really enriching dialogue, so thank you so much for being here. Our next Youth Research Dialogue is on the 8th of November. We will talk about participation and citizenship competences, so if you're interested, go to our website and check out our social media pages and you will get more information. So thank you so much and see you soon.